So this is really important work to do, is to really kind of look at all of your interactions and say to yourself, where am I holding on to inferior thoughts? Where am I holding on to negativity that is now preventing me from moving into the life I was born to live? Hi friends, welcome back to Call Cut with Angélique. Today we're going to talk about being stuck in your life. So many of us feel as though we are trapped in our lives, stuck in our lives, and this is something I hear often and have experienced myself. So we're going to get right in it. Before we can go deep down into understanding why we might be feeling stuck in our lives, we have to look at how we actually get to where we are. Outside of the traumas and the dramas, everything is choice. Some things happen that we do not choose consciously. Some things happen through divine contract. Some things happen subconsciously. There are so many levels and so many nuances to this game that it becomes really difficult for some people to navigate. So what we're going to do is we're going to start right at the beginning. And when we start at the beginning, we have to look at what is free will. And I know this seems really way out there in terms of, okay, Angélique, I'm stuck in my life. How do I unstick myself? But trust me, if you understand the dynamics of how we ultimately get trapped, that is how you can unstick yourself. Otherwise, you're going to continue to run around in circles and you'll try every self-help book out there and you will go to every coach and every wannabe guru to try and help you find some answers when in reality, you just need to understand how the whole system works. So here we go. We live in a free will dimension. The third dimension is material matter, right? We are matter. And the third dimension is the dimension of matter. If you really do some work into this, you would see the sixth dimension is geometry. The ninth dimension is the void. And there are many different ones and everything in between. There's 12 dimensions. And you can almost think of dimensions as octaves on a piano, right? And within each dimension, as if within each piano key is another 12 dimensions until you have 144. And this gets very, very complicated. But the bottom line is we try to move our consciousness through each dimension. And we do that by elevating our consciousness. Well, where we are here, we are in what they call the age of ignorance or the Kali Yuga, which is the end of a zodiacal age. And it's the end of the zodiacal age of Pisces. And we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And as we do that, if you could see the precession of the equinoxes, you'll start to see that when we move from the central sun and we move around and we start to move around the precession of the equinoxes going through the yugas, which would be the golden age, the iron age, the bronze age, et cetera, we're actually falling asleep. We're falling out of our divine consciousness and we're coming all the way around until we get to the Kali Yuga and we start to move again toward this grand central sun. And that is where we start to awaken. And that's the kind of point, like if you could see this oblong sort of circle that has all of these stations, you would see an arrow that said, you are here. So we are moving toward this awakening. And the awakening is the understanding of who we are, where we are going, and what we are here to do. And this is a huge question that needs to be answered because most people are asking themselves, what's it all for? Why am I here? What is going on in this world? And here it is in very basic terms. We live in a free will planet, and a free will planet means that you can express yourself however you want. Now, you will see this, okay, being played out. How many people express themselves in lower vibrational tendencies versus higher vibrational tendencies? Now, there is your free will, and then there is superior will and inferior will. We always talk about the proverbial devil and angel, and I feel like I've talked about this a million times on this show. But the most important thing to understand is that this evil sort of energy, it does exist. It is not the same as your primal animalistic energy. It's very different. But you do also deal with your primal energy as well, which would be the survival energy, the energy that keeps you alive in this earth plane where there are things in the atmosphere that could potentially harm you, not just humans and or other beings. So when we come to this planet, we have free will. And that free will says you can do as you please. Now, the consequence part comes from the laws of the universe. There are dimensions where you cannot act out your lower vibrational tendencies because there are consequences of that. But this is not one of them. And I think most people would understand that if you look around and you see the world that we're living in right now. There's quite a bit of lower vibrational energy that seems to be prevalent that is without consequence, at least for the moment. So our inferior will can be vices, passions, desires, anything that leads you to competition, envy, jealousy, greed, lust, power, violence. These are all lower vibrational energies, and they come from man's desires, man's passions, man's uncontrolled emotion. And what that ultimately does is it leads us down a path of destruction and diminishing our superior will. Inferior will would be what we would call the demonic vices, where those lower vibrational energies and tendencies trap you into doing things that are not of your highest good. Your superior will is actually the divine will. And if you want to tap into your superior will, kindness, compassion, empathy, love, peace, harmony, then you must align with the divine will, or for those of you that are religious, God's will. For those of you that are spiritual, the divine will, the source energy, the Christos Sophia, etc. So where does getting trapped play into all of this will? Well, anything that you want to bring into the world at all has to have a force of will. The question is, what force of will are you activating? I'm going to read you a passage from this book that I absolutely adore called The Secret Parchment. Now, I've read several books from Radu Sinamar, and these are things that you either believe in or not. However, I was super surprised to read about superior will and inferior will in here, and I thought, oh, wow, okay, this is a sign. So I'm going to share this with you. Shin Lin explains this to Radu Sinamar about the problem for man. Precisely stated, this automatic subconscious will tends to put human beings in chains, makes man give in to inferior impulses, and pushes man gradually on a descending path. It's also the energy of will, but it is an inferior energy. If, however, you awaken the superior will energy enough, this can efficiently oppose some impulses of inferior tendencies and can dominate and annihilate them. In such situations, the role of superior will is essential. Now, she's actually talking about low instinctual aspects that often grasp the whole being in their manifestation and subdue it. She also speaks about it in the case of vices or passions, that these inferior aspirations of will are strongly manifested and can lead man to regression. What I find so interesting about that is we move along this path believing that we have this all figured out, when in reality, we don't even consciously know what we're operating from. We don't know what our superior will is or our inferior will, but man, do they play a huge role in how we operate, if our soul is elevating, if we're going to attach to the Christ consciousness, if we're going to elevate out of this mess, if we are going to bring peace and harmony to the world at large. So this all comes down to choice and how we use our will power every single day. It's not just one moment in time or one meditation or one class or one course. It is a constant reevaluation of our circumstances, of the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act, and then choosing a different path. If you are someone who wants to do beautiful things in this world and you want to bring peace and love and compassion, but you are plagued by envy and competition and jealousy, your will is at odds. And so you're not necessarily going to be able to manifest this beautiful dream you have of bringing peace, love, and harmony to the world if you are not in peace, love, and harmony within yourself. Now, we've talked about this a million times on this podcast: as above, so below, as within, so without. This is really interesting stuff because if you understand energy dynamics, you understand that we are the mirror, we are the reflectors. Everything that is happening in the upper echelons is also being reflected here. If there is war outside, it is because there is a war of consciousness. There is an inferior will that is dominating man at the present. And that is because, back to the beginning, we are in the end of a zodiacal age and we are moving into a new age. And so we are in the age of ignorance. But in order to take our individual souls and then be able to move the collective, we have to take responsibility for what it is that we are putting out in the world. We have to take responsibility for the way we act, for the way we think. So this is really important work to do, is to really kind of look at all of your interactions and say to yourself, where am I holding on to inferior thoughts? Where am I holding on to negativity that is now preventing me from moving into the life I was born to live? Wow. Here's the part that is the pièce de résistance, at least for me. If you're operating unconsciously in inferior will, you cannot manifest the life you really want. And that is where we feel stuck. That is the trapped in your life feeling. And I'm going to show you how this plays out in the things that you would never believe. And when I really started doing this work, I said, oh my God, I had to look at myself and say, whoa, this is why this and this is why that. And gosh, damn girl, you got a lot of work to do before you fully align with your superior will. We are all works in progress. There is nobody out there who is a master, and you don't get to crown yourself a master. I get very wary of people who wear crowns because a crown is an ego-based sort of thing. I am something above you. I have crowned myself above you. That comes from deep psychological need and ego, friends. That is not coming from a place of genuine knowledge, of genuine strength, of genuine compassion for the self and for others. That is coming from a place of wanting to be above all because you feel small. So we have to be super careful of these labels that we apply to ourselves and others, because they do have meaning beyond just some superficial funny joke or something that somebody says in a moment of need because they're not feeling very good about themselves. So let's get back to how this plays out. You make a decision to take a job that you don't really love, but you say to yourself, well, this is going to get me where I need to go, and I'm going to just do this job, and then I'll be able to have enough money to make my dream come true, and I'll be able to align with that. Great. Perfect. Except that this job that you've taken on is super, super demanding, and it pays a lot of money, but it really sucks your soul. And you notice that you're more angry, that you're stressed a lot, you're really tired, you don't have a lot of energy to put into your dream, you don't have energy to put into others. You're so busy pouring into this job, you can't pour into anything else. Also, you start to notice that you're not necessarily acting your best self. You go to meetings and you're tired and you're cranky and maybe you lash out at people. So this one decision that you made to take a job that you really don't like or you don't love or you don't feel is in alignment with you has now descended you on a path of your inferior will, because now you're acting out, not from the heart, not from your divine, but from a place where you are in survival, where you need something, where you're not content, where you're miserable all the time. And that misery infects everybody around you. So suddenly you're engaged in these sort of tete-a-tetes with people, and you're not acting in your best self. I can tell you this from personal experience. I was working at my father's company for a while, and they set up this beautiful space for me, absolutely beautiful for my company. And it had a theater and it had this gorgeous editing bay. I mean, they really went all out. It was fabulous. Truly, it was. But the work wasn't really in alignment with what I truly wanted to do. But the pay was good. I had this beautiful space. My company was making money. I had these great clients, but I was not happy. And in that place where I was not happy, I was finding that I was acting out of my inferior will. I was angry all the time. I was stressed. I was sad. I would snap at people. I wasn't acting in my kind self. I was absolutely in my lower vibrational state. And that was because I wanted something different, but I was complacent, I was comfortable, and I was not putting myself in a position to align with God's will for me. I was doing what other people wanted me to do. I was following the money. I wasn't following my heart. And this is hard for everybody, folks, because let's be real. In this particular world, you can't do shit without money. So you've got to have a way to have income coming into your life. And what we need to do is become more in tune with our divine nature, because our oversoul, our superior energy will actually lead us to that, to a situation that's perfect for us, to a situation that's easy, that allows us to have our dreams, but still have the bills paid. This is a possibility, but we have to align with our superior will. We have to put ourselves in a position where we are doing the divine work. Now, there's a lot that goes into how we get ourselves into that position, and I'm going to go over that next week. So we're going to go deep into this next week. But for this particular piece, I want to focus on identifying what is your superior will versus your inferior will and how you can align with the divine, right? So yes, we have free will, but we could either attach it to the demonic will of desires, passions, and vices, or we can do it to the divine will of compassion, empathy, peace, and love. That is the choice every single day when you wake up that you make. That is the choice. What the call cut method does is it gives you that tool to help you to cut those narratives so you can make a better choice wherever you are, to stop yourself, to really think, is this in alignment with my highest good? Now, what does highest good mean, and how do we get into this divine space? This one is actually simple, and you don't have to be religious to know this one, although it is in every single religious text that has ever been written. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto you. That's really it. Any situation that you go into, if you are in any way harming another person, gossip, slander, competition, copying, stealing, violence, then you are in your inferior will. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to be pearl clutching right now because they don't think that jealousy and envy and gossip are actually parts of your inferior will, but they are, because they harm people. Your words actually do have an effect on people. They harm people. So you want to be a person that is fully conscious of where you are in your will game. Are you aligned with God's will or the goddess or whatever you believe in? Or are you aligned with your inferior will? Because if these two are at odds, you are stuck. Suddenly you're not happy. You can't find your way out. So many people think if I just become rich and famous, or rich and whatever, rich usually, all my problems are going to disappear. No, and no. And I can tell you that from personal experience, and whoever it was that said the more money, the more problems is 100% on par. The more money we have, the more issues come to us. And that is bottom line. Anybody who is extremely wealthy deals with a great deal of unhappiness. And they are not living the life that you think. When you see these polished highlight reels on social media of people pretending that they have it all or everything in their life is perfection, that is not real. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world to get great wealth. A lot has to be given. We've been hearing so much on in the ethers now about even the Diddy and the Epstein and, oh my God, and Hollywood and the Baal and Moloch and the satanic worship and the devil and sacrifices and eating babies, all of this stuff. And I always say there's no such thing as absolute truth, but there's truth in everything. The selling your soul to the devil has been a thing for years, especially for material gain. Okay? So the trick is you have to understand what that actually is. You can't give up the part of your soul that is love, compassion, beauty, peace, and harmony for money. Money is an illusion. It's absolute trap. It will get you stuck here. There are ways to make money without selling your soul to the devil, I assure you of this. However, you have to align with your divine in order to get that. You can't be working out of these lower vibrational energies, desperation. I've heard people say to me, oh, I'm going to, I step on that person at work, or, I lied about this person, or I stole their project. And people have told me this at dinners, which is quite horrifying. And to which I say, well, how do you feel about yourself after you do that? well, I need to get where I have to go. And, it's a dog eat dog world. Okay. But that is demonic influence. That is not being aligned with the divine. Again, harm none, do unto others as we would have done unto us. It's very, very simple. This is not a rule that we haven't heard since kindergarten. And yet we don't know how to implement it. And especially when you're deeply, deeply affected by lack of self-love, this can be even harder. So being stuck in these places, how do we get out? How do we get out of being stuck? Where do we go? Who do we talk to? Align with the divine. Stand in your superior will. Stand in the choice that is the best choice for all. What is going to get me to a place where I feel good about myself? Is it going to feel good to say something bad about somebody just to make myself feel better? Yeah, you might feel better in the moment, but in the long run, are you going to feel better about that? Or are you going to think about that and say, well, I'm not so sure why I did that? Going around and trying to tear somebody down or telling stories that are really just your perception, is that going to help you elevate your spirit? Is that going to align you with the divine? No. What's going to align you with the divine is to always come from a place of love, but a place of loving yourself. Because when you love yourself, you won't hurt another person because you don't want to be hurt. You stop yourself from doing awful things to people because you yourself would not want those awful things being done to you. And it starts right there with the golden rule. Next week, I am going to go far deeper into this because the real trick to aligning the will is one little thing that makes a huge difference. I'll see you friends next week. Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angélique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.